My name is Nicola, aka Socrates, and you're watching Singularity One-on-One. If you guys enjoy this show, you can help me make it better by writing a review on iTunes or simply making a donation. Today, my guest on the show is Dr. Hiroshi Ishiguro. Dr. Ishiguro is best known for his geminoid android robots, and I'm extremely happy to have him as a guest on my show. Welcome, Hiroshi.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Fantastic. So let's jump right in and let me ask you, Dr. Ishiguro, would you mind introducing yourself and your work perhaps in a couple of words? How would you do that?
Actually, I'm a roboticist and building a very human-like robot called Android. And I'm also, building another types of how can I say, the more neutral appearance robots. So a little bit difficult, to explain everything. But if you like please watch the YouTubes, and you can find the many videos about my robots with the keyword of a geminoid, android, and my name.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and let me ask you this: since you are best known for your geminoid robots, how do we know that right now we're talking to the real Hiroshi and not to your geminoid?
It's a very difficult question, right? In the near future, I think it's going to be very difficult to distinguish which is which. So that is my intention, And then we're gonna think about what human is, right? So now we are talking through the videos. So there is no way to check who am I.
Yeah, because, the camera is not perfect, the sound is very good, but you may well have put your geminoid robot there doing the interview while you're having dinner with your family. Who knows?
Yeah, that's a possibility. Recently, I'm using a geminoid, for giving my lecture in foreign countries. And actually, a couple of months ago, I sent the geminoid to the Australia, and I gave a lecture there. But I was in Japan, right? So that is the reality now.
And what was the response of the audience when you didn't go yourself, but you sent there your geminoid? How did they accept him?
Well, actually, the organizer of a conference, they love to have a geminoid instead of me, because, if they invite me, they need to cover the business class ticket. But for the geminoid, the assistant, will bring, with the economy class, right? And if I go to the conference, the people cannot see the robot. No, of course, the people can see myself, right? But if we send the geminoid, the people can enjoy the talks, and people can see the android. So, and the value is maybe double or more than that, right?
Mm-hmm. And I imagine they can leave the geminoid in a storage room. They don't have to get you a hotel room and all that stuff. So, yeah, so I can see how that can work very well for a conference organizer. Perhaps next time we schedule an interview, I should ask you to send your geminoid here.
Well, we can do it now, right? But unfortunately, I'm at home, right? And if I prepare these interviews in a university, and I can use geminoid for the interviews. I'm doing that kind of things also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, eventually one day you would be able to send your geminoid at home when you're abroad on a conference. And
then if the family want to have myself at home, right? I can leave the geminoid at home, and I can go somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So let me ask you this. How did you get interested in building android robots, and why?
That is a very, very long history. Basically, I was interested in artificial intelligence, and I saw that artificial intelligence need to have bodies, in order to have experience by itself, right? So, without the body, we cannot have experience. We cannot build up a recognition system. So, and I really think, the artificial intelligence need the bodies, and so that is that was a beginning of studies of the robotics, but not industrial robots, the more human-like robots. Then, I built interactive robots, called the Robobi. It's the name of the robot. I have created around the 2000, right? And, that we use the robot. It was a mechanical looking robot, and we used in many purposes. But eventually, I found that the importance of a human-like appearance. The human brain has a many function to recognize human, not mechanical looking robots. Okay, so that is the reason, why I started the Android project. So my purpose was to understand the importance of human-like appearance.
Mm-hmm. And you said that you believe that it's impossible to have perhaps artificial intelligence that is disembodied?
Well, if we focus on the particular functions, for example, a quiz, or for example, just gather the knowledge, I think it's possible. But if we expect to have a more human-like artificial intelligence, the definitely robot the computer need to have a body. So, through the various experience, we can, obtain a new knowledge, right? If we look at the children is always doing that kind of things. So if we expect to have that kind of a robot, the learning robots or, developmental robots, I think, the computer need to have a body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how smart are your Android robots right now?
Well, we always try to improve the intelligence more and more, but actually our Android is teleoperated now. Like the main function is the teleoperation. Mm-hmm. But in addition to the teleoperations, and the Android has many automated functions like the human. The Android has a very sophisticated computer program to control the eye movements and the subconscious body movements. And, the Android has a function to generate, lip movement from the voice. So there are so many automated functions, but, most difficult part is, verbal communications. So verbal communications is, teleoperated. Mm-hmm. So, if, if Android doesn't speak anything, right? Just, listen somebody's talk or, just have some response to the visual and the audio stimulus. The Android is a very, very human-like. Mm-hmm. So, difficult to answer your questions, right? But in the sense of verbal communication, Android is not intelligent yet. But if we teleoperate, if we have operators, of course, Android will be a very, very human-like because teleoperation.
So let me ask. So currently, it seems like the robot is basically borrowing from a distance the intelligence of the operator, right? And,
yes.
and it doesn't have much of its own, but the idea is that eventually they would be self-sufficient, right?
Right.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, that is my purpose, right? But in order to improve the intelligence of the Android, teleoperated Android, we need to gather a lot of data, the conversational data, interaction data. Mm-hmm. So the question is how we can get that kind of data, right? So if the operator operate the robots, right, and the computer can gather a lot of interactive patterns, and then the computer memorize it and replay it, right? So that is our way. That is why we are focusing on the teleoperated Android. And in the near future, I believe that we can implement the more human-like intelligence to the Android.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, though, to define that term. Let's see, what in your opinion is the definition of artificial intelligence?
Well, again, that is also the difficult question to answer, right? I really think, why we are developing a robot, why we are studying the humans, because we want to know what human is, right? So we were looking for the definition of humans. And intelligence is the most important characters, the features of humans, right? Therefore, we are also looking for the definition of intelligence. Okay, so that means that I cannot answer to your question. Still, we are looking for what is that, right? But if we compare the computers, right? The computer called Watson.
Yes.
And Watson defeated a human quiz champion, right? And it's quite intelligent, but that intelligence is very limited just for the quiz, right? So our expectation is to have a more human-like, more daily, the intelligence.
Yes. Well, let me ask you this though. After so many years of producing, making, and studying those robots, what is the answer that you have arrived to? What is the meaning of being human? What is human?
Well, actually, the definition of a human is changing. Okay, for example, 200 or 300 years ago, if we don't have arms and legs, right? So that kind of handicapped people cannot be accepted by the ordinary the societies, right? But today, of course, even if they have prosthetic arms and legs, they are human, right? There's no doubt, right? Everybody is a human. That means that we cannot define human as with the physical bodies, So and probably we need to find the definition of humans in the brain, or that we should focus on the more brain activities. Okay, so however, we don't know how the brain works. Actually, for example, many people are using a smartphone and computers. So knowledge is coming from the computers or infrastructures, right? So the brain is always accessing to the external world, right? So, and that since there is no clear boundaries, between the brain and external world on the computer network, right? So what is humans? Then, that kind of a definition is going to be very complicated. Okay. But still I have, I believe the one thing. So humans believe each other, right? So now, now I'm talking, we are talking each other, right? That we believe that, we have a heart and a mind. We are intelligent. Right? We have intelligence and consciousness. So we just believe each other, right? Okay. So you believe that I'm a human. I believe that you are humans. You have a consciousness. So we are just believing so, right? So, and if, the most important thing is to believe some other people. Then, I can believe that, I have a mind and heart. Okay. So, and the mind, heart, consciousness, emotions, these are very, very important feature as a human. Okay. But I really think, this kind of, the stuff's coming from but basically these are subjective phenomena. This is not objective. Even if we carefully study the brain, we cannot get the clear answer. Right. But however, everybody is feeling. Okay. Everybody believing. We have that kind of stuff in our mind or brain. Okay. So therefore I think, the human is, most important feature, the ability is to believe other persons, to believe some, some important features like, the consciousness and the mind. We are just believing that we have that kind of things, and we are just believing we are human. Therefore, we can be a human.
So basically, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it must be a duck.
Yeah. Well, Yes, maybe, but a little bit yeah, maybe.
Because I mean that's basically our judgment, right? I'm looking at you, you're looking at me, and I'm thinking, oh, he looks kind of like human, he sounds like human, he sounds like he makes sense, and
Uh,
therefore he must be human, right? But I
right.
have no empirical evidence other than my observations from the other part of the world right now.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And always, one more thing is what I want to say is, the who can, how we can obtain the human right. Human right always given by societies. Okay. And I guess the same things happen for the Android and the robot. Well, okay, if you spend a long time with Android, so Android will be your family members, and you may want to give a human right to the Android. Then Android can be a human. All right. So that is my fundamental idea.
Mm-hmm.
So by building a robot, I'm trying to prove this idea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So, and if I build many robots, and if the robot became our members, so our member of our societies, a member of our families, then the people consider to give human right to the robot and androids. Then the android and the robot, they will be a human. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you've mentioned the importance and the role played by culture and society. So let me ask you about this interesting division between Western and Eastern culture. In the West, robots are bad. They're Terminators. They kill everybody. In the East, in Japan, they're superheroes. They're Astro Boy. They're better than us. So
Right.
how do you perceive that division between the East and the West and their attitude towards robots?
Basically, we have a very, very different basic ideas about the human life and soul, right? And basically we, in Japan, we never distinguish and human and others, right? Therefore, we never hesitate to have a human-like robot, right? And everything's important for us. That is, Japanese, the fundamental ideas. But maybe the Christians, the European people and American people, I know, mainly you are Christians and the Christians, right? And, try to distinguish and human and others. So I think that is a basic idea of a Christian. I guess, I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
But, we have a kind of a we are Buddhists and we are Shintos, and we have some sort of original animism. And but anyway, so so in Japan we are quite homogeneous. Homogeneous means everything's equal, right? And equally, and everything's equally have the soul,
Yes.
right? So that is the reason why.
That's a fantastic point. Actually, I remember in the beginning when Columbus discovered, quote unquote, the New World, there were huge debates whether the local Indians had souls. And the official policy of the church for the first several decades was that they had no souls. And therefore you could kill them and enslave them and do whatever you want because only white people had souls and the local Indians had no souls. And then there was only an economic imperative for this to change. And then they decided to save them, to save their souls from being barbaric to Christianity.
I really think the same things happened for the androids and the robots. If we see more robots and androids, if the android plays a very important role in our societies, I'm guessing the same things happened again.
That's what you're hoping. Very, very interesting. So let me throw in a couple of audience questions here. For example, Cynthia Stewart is asking, Dr. Ishiguro, could you elaborate on the uncanny valley, and do you yourself experience the uncanny valley?
By building a geminoid?
Yeah, I imagine.
So geminoid, uncanny valley is more stronger negative feeling. And actually, I started my Android project with my daughter's copy. And, and when the daughter, was 4 years old, I decided to create the daughter's android because I wanted to compare the mechanical looking robots and very human like robots. But at the moment, I didn't have enough budget and I couldn't install enough number of actuators to the robots. Therefore, the appearance was okay. Maybe appearance was perfect, but the movement was quite jerky. It was like a zombie, right? And therefore, when my daughter saw the on Android, and actually she cried. She's scared very much, and she cried.
She got scared.
Yeah, of course. It looks like a zombie. The movement was very jerky.
So
right?
then she was a perfect example of somebody experiencing the uncanny valley.
Yes. That is, the uncanny valley is, well, you can just imagine a zombie or, moving crops, right? And it's quite uncanny, right? So that is uncanny valley. So now, we could improve the movement very much, and our Android, the recent Android is not uncanny anymore. Right?
So, but then you think that we would overcome it if it gets real close to the original? Do you think she would not have been scared if the robot was moving and looking and talking just like her?
That is not uncanny valley, right? Some people scare about that kind of things, right? So well, on the other hand, it's like a kind of a twin brothers or sisters. You can imagine that if we have a twin brothers, we hesitate to talk to the brothers. We don't, right? But if that is the robot, so logically, I think the people they scare to talk to the copy of her or himself, right? Because there is a possibility the robot is going to take the identity of the person. Actually, that kind of thing happens for me. The people are always, watching the Android, but nobody is watching me. And then always, why you are interviewing me? Because, I created my copy. So your interest is not myself, right? So your interest is my robot or my research result, right? My Android is taking the, it's my identity. I'm losing my identity, right? But, I guess I'm just guessing, if the ordinary people create, ordinary people have own Androids, right? So the people, they worry about to lose the identities, right? But if they don't care about identity, I think they can accept, they can enjoy, with the Androids.
Let me ask you another audience question by Feliciano Guimares. We already discussed the importance of emotions and so on. So Feliciano is asking, how to implement true emotions, pain and pleasure axis, emotional resonance like we have with other animals?
Right. That is also the very, very important question. And honestly speaking, now we are trying to implement the very, the pain. Pain is the most important, the feeling, right? So the robot needs to feel the pain, but, and the robot can easily mimic the feeling, right? So with the facial expression or with the reactions, but we don't know what's happening in your brain when we are feeling a pain, right? What is real pain? What is not? What is the imitating pain? So it's quite difficult to distinguish which is which, right? Another question is very young infant. So, do they know the pain from the beginning, or no? So, and probably they are feeling something. But in the societies, I think they could understand what is the pain, how to use the word of the pain. Okay. And by watching by interacting with others and young infants, they can understand the real pain. Okay. But anyway, so pain is a very important but it's very difficult to implement. So once we can implement the real pain to the robot, I think a robot will be very, very human-like. I would say more, the robot can be a kind of a real human.
But don't we have to have also the ability or to feel pleasure? I mean, because with pain comes pleasure, right? Or the other way around, with pleasure comes pain.
Chicken and egg problem, right? But that kind of the emotional, how can I say that? It's the
spectrum.
Spectrum, or the movement from the positive and negative. That kind of fluctuation is very important as a human.
Yeah. Another question by Callum Chase. Dr. Ishiguro, do you think that we will make self-conscious robots, and if so, when? And will their minds be in the cloud?
Yeah, well, another difficult but important question: consciousness. So I'm always asking the same question to myself. Do I have a consciousness now? I'm believing so, but I cannot clearly explain what is my conscious.
You can't really prove it.
Yeah, I can. So, but I'm believing. I have something. I'm alive. I'm waking up, and I'm doing something. Well, I understand what I'm doing now, right? So that is the consciousness, right? If we define the consciousness as the self-observations from the kind of a imaginary third-person view, I think there is a way to implement the consciousness to the robot, but again, that is very difficult challenge.
So let me ask you this. We said that it's very hard to prove that you have consciousness. So basically, every time that we are meeting another human being, we're taking it as granted. We're believing that they're human, right? I'm believing that I'm talking to a human being now. So in a way, I am conducting a Turing test with you right now. Right? So would the Turing test in that sense be the best way to assess the geminoids or the androids of the future, and to see whether they do or do not possess any consciousness? What do you think of the Turing test?
So the original Turing test is a text-based Turing test. Okay. So, but with the Android, we can have a total Turing test. Total Turing test is will access to all modalities, appearance and movement, and the emotions, everything. Then, there is and one more thing, that the Turing test is is not objective, it's subjective, right? If the subject recognize the robot as a human, the robot can pass the Turing test, total Turing test. And okay, let me go back to the question about the consciousness. In the consciousness, I by watching you, by talking with you, I believe that you have a consciousness, right? And you are doing the same things, right? And you believe, I have a consciousness. So we are just, believing each other's. Therefore, that we believe that, I have a consciousness, you have the consciousness, right? So, and if, the Android pass the total Turing test, then probably I can believe, or you can believe to the Android, and that has the self-consciousness, right? Even if the Android does not have the same conscious mechanism to the human, right? Even if the Android does a computer program, so through the interactions, and and if we can feel that the Android, the Android has the self-consciousness, then Android can have the consciousness, okay, like us.
Let me ask you this kind of maybe a follow-up thought here. Is it more a matter of hardware or software or both? Because you were saying how the robot copy of your daughter that you built was very jerky. So you didn't have the actuators, you didn't have the hardware to make it move smoothly like a human being, so it moved like a zombie. So is it, how important is hardware versus software?
You know, for the humans, or some organic systems and biological system, you know, there is no clear boundary between hardware and software. But for the artificial system, we are using a computer. Therefore, you know, that we have a concept of a hardware and the softwares. But well, and I guess, you know, the same things happen for the computers, right? And the computer, that we can have more intelligent device, right? Device, you know, and is becoming more intelligent. And well, for example, the CMOS, CMOS camera, you know, can have many functions like a human retinas. So, you know, we cannot clearly say that is hardware or software. It's a firmware or some sort of a mixture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, the same, well, you know, we can say the same thing to the actuators. Actuator, you know, we can make it more intelligent by changing the firmware and the softwares. But, you know, still there is a limitations because the current actuator is not so, you know, the human-like. It is, you know, totally different from the human muscles. So we need to improve the more soft, powerful actuators. Okay. So we need to, well, you know, it's quite important to develop better hardwares. But, you know, at the same time, you know, we need to have more, you know, intelligent, sophisticated softwares. But my feeling is, you know, we are missing two important element for the human-like robots. One is skin, very stretchable, sensitive. So we need to develop the new material for this. It's an issue of hardware. Another one is muscles. Muscles, you know, and we are using DC servo motors or, you know, just linear, pneumatic actuators. That they are totally different from human muscles. Okay. Therefore, you know, it's quite important to have a more human-like, robust, powerful, the low energy in the actuators.
Are we making any progress?
Yes, I think, you know, I spent more than 7 years for developing much better linear actuators. You remember that the Terminator has a kind of a air cylinder here. It is not air cylinder. It's a linear actuator, linear magnetic actuators. Very powerful one. And, you know, we could develop that kind of linear actuators recently. And, you know, now we are building a new Android with linear actuators. Okay. So we are calling it a Terminator project.
Terminator project. And what kind of, is it going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger?
You know, you know, actually the inside mechanism looks like the Terminator.
And the outside?
Yeah, well, mechanical design is similar to the Terminator, naked Terminator.
Dr. Ishiguro, what's the biggest, most surprising thing that you have learned since you started studying and making androids?
Well, many things happened. Okay. So yeah, so many things I have, but well, yeah.
What's the most surprising thing that you didn't expect?
Yeah. Okay. Actually, you know, there are two types of a robot. One is, of course, you know, the very human-like robot, but the other is a kind of imaginary person, neutral design. I'm not sure you know my telenoid work.
Yes.
You know, we are running a field test in Denmark. So telenoid is quite neutral, right? So but the telenoid, you know, does not have any
features.
Particular character features like a person, right? It's a general person, general human. But still, you know, the people can enjoy very much. You know, people can have, and actually, you know, if the people hear the voice from the telenoid, you know, and the voice, of course, the voice is, they're coming from the another person's, and that person, that is a very human-like voice. Then by hearing the voice, um, the people can have imagination about the, in another person's, and then, mentally project that imagination onto the telenoid. So telenoid is not the android. It's quite simple, humanoids. But sometimes it works very well, especially for the elderlies and the children.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And, so that means that we are, the question is how the people, they recognize other people. Okay. And in a short-term interactions, I think, Android or Geminoid is much better than the, telenoid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's better to see the very human-like appearance or movement. But once, we had the little bit longer conversation, 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Okay. The imaginary, the person were, the more simpler robot, with which we can have imaginary conversation. So that is much better, and, we want to use our imagination for the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's very interesting. So let me ask you, was that the reason, or how did you move from the work on your androids to the work on your telenoids, and why?
My purpose with the Android was, to understand the human-robot interaction. What is the, important factors for the human-robot interaction? I was looking for the, important factors, right? Then I got some inspirations. Okay, let's remove, all human-like features except the voice, and let's see what's happened. Okay, and I try to identify each modality, which modality is the most important, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my answer was, maybe the voice is the most important, most human-like. Okay, and the voice is bringing so many meanings, right? Mm-hmm. And then, by hearing the voice, we can have an imagination of our other persons. Then, if we have if we have one more modalities, like, the bodies, right? Body shape, or, the two combinations, voice and the bodies, or voice and the snare. For example, if we hear the voice here, around here, I'm not watching, but I could snare the perfume the person. Okay, then, the voice will be a very, very realistic.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel the existence of that person,
mm-hmm.
right, by hearing the snare and from the snare and the voice. Okay, so two modalities are needed, in order to have a feeling of the presence or existence of the person. And actually, the telenoid has two modalities: human-like voice and the body. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Yeah, and I have found that kind of interesting phenomena.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But originally, the telenoid, the geminoid, there was a test bed for me to understand the important factors in the human-robot interactions, and therefore, I could have a telenoid.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this then. Now, we talked about the fact that telenoid robots basically borrow the intelligence of the teleoperator from a distance because they lack any intelligence of their own. But there are people who, like, for example, Dr. Rando Kune, who I've interviewed on this show, who are working on home brain emulation.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you, would you personally want to upload your mind into a robot body or into your android body?
Yeah, well, that is more useful for me. I mean, my current lecture with the Geminoid is, the lecture itself is automated, just pre-recorded and replay, my talk and my gestures. But Q&A questions, I need to, access to the internet and answer to the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, it works very well, but still, I need to, to spend, 10 minutes or, I need to wake up, in a very early morning or very late night, if Android is in Europe and United States, right? So, and if I if I can upload my brain to the computer, to the robot, right? So I don't need to do anything. So
Mm-hmm.
I can exist in many places and simultaneously.
So let me ask you a little bit more seriously here. What is your take on the technological singularity? Do you feel like you're working towards something that may end up being called a technological singularity? Your work may be a part of that path.
Technological singularity, that already happens. So the people ask many times that questions, but already the computer is much better than the humans. If we focus on the particular task, okay, and human also has a huge varieties, right? Some of them, the handicapped people, they are also, of course, humans, and the elders, they are also the humans, right? If we compare the computer power, the computer abilities and human abilities, okay, and already the computer is better in some sense, but we cannot perfectly compare the computer and the humans, right? Human has many unknown abilities and functions. Okay, human has so wide variety. So my answer is yes and no, right? But it depends on the definition of a human. Okay, so before talking about the technological singularity, we need to clearly define the humans. Then you can compare the technology and humans. But what we are doing is we are looking for the definition of a human. Okay.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. And you said that definition is changing over time.
Changing, and our final goal is to understand the definition of humans.
So, and you mentioned the people with disabilities who may have prosthetic arms and legs and stuff like that. So, in a way, and how that definition is changing, how that process is changing the definition of humanity. In a way, we are experiencing this merger with the machines, right? Machines are becoming parts of us, and we are still considered to be human. So perhaps you can tell us a little bit about what's called transhumanism. How do you perceive that movement, the movement of the merger between man and machine, and how would that change the meaning of what is human?
We have many limitations. Original human has many limitations in the sense of space and time, and so for example, the Skype, right? So we are living in a totally different countries in a different the time, right? But still we can talk like this. This technology is overcoming distance and times, right? And prosthetic arms and legs and mechanical bodies, they overcome the limitation of the human bodies. But for example, the recently the athlete used, the handicapped athlete, and who are using prosthetic legs. So sometimes they are much better than the normal person, right? Mm-hmm. They are kind of a super and the humans. Okay, so. By using by accepting the artificial legs and arms, and we can be more super the humans. We can overcome the limitation of physical bodies. So anyway, so if we overcome everything, right? I think the definition that we need to focus on more intelligence side of so we cannot clearly define based on the physical bodies. We cannot clearly define about well, just the one modality like talking and like watching, because by using the machines and the computers and the Skype, right? Well, and we can have a kind of supervision and super auditions. Okay. So I really think we cannot define the physical body or simple functions. Okay. But, we should, look at what kind of mental states we have in our brains, and, how we are gathering the informations and how we are forming, own characteristic, or, how we can, have a consciousness, right? By gathering a lot of informations in our brain. And, we need to focus on that kind of information flows. And, that information, I call it the information flow, right? And that kind of information flow defines, that, that person's identity or that person's, originality.
And humanity.
Humanities, I think.
Yeah.
But that is my guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Dr. Ishiguro, time is advancing here, so unfortunately we'll have to bring our interview to an end. Let me ask you, where can people find more about you and your work?
Well, in my, with the webpage and YouTube's, and in Japan, and I'm attending to the many conferences and exhibitions.
What's your webpage?
Webpage, you can see the many the pictures and the videos, and everybody can download.
But what's your address? What's the URL address on the webpage?
Address is a little bit longer, but search by Google with the keyword of Ishiguro and Osaka University, or ATR and Android, right? So you can easily reach to my webpage.
Hiroshi, the very last question that I always ask of guests on my show is this. Is there a final message, perhaps the most important thing that you would like our viewers and listeners to take away from this conversation with you today? What would you like that to be?
Sorry. And last message for...
The most important thing that you would like our audience to take from you today.
I see. Let me see. Well, we never stop to develop technologies, because, the technology development is a way to understand what human is. So therefore, I'm just keep developing robots, and therefore I think, we're, surviving in this world. And if we keep developing new technologies, then someday we may find the very important basic ideas what human is. So I hope to share these very fundamental questions, what human is, with you.
Technology is a way to understand what human is. I really like that. Dr. Hiroshi Ishiguro, thank you very much for your time today.
Welcome. So I hope you could enjoy my talk.
Thank you. We totally did. Thank you.
Singularity.